Hey everybody, welcome back to Kat's Kitchen. I'm so glad you guys are back here with us for another episode and some more recipes. Today we're going to be canning some apple products because 'tis this season. It is mid-October and we're excited to utilize all the way up into the last bit of the season, all the produce that we can. So I'm going to be working today in my canning book here. I will leave this down below. Today we're going to be making some apple butter and applesauce. For the apple butter, let me see what page I'm going to be on here so I can let you know. It's going to be 133 for the apple butter, and the applesauce is going to be on page 139. So we're going to start off with those two apple products. Just so you're aware, yesterday I had already peeled, cored, cubed up our apples. I did about a half a bushel of apples. I mixed together Macintosh and Argala apples, put them in the crock pot with some water, and then just let them cook low and slow for a long time, at least 10 hours on low. And then, so now it's ready for us to turn it into our applesauce and our apple butter. And just to kind of give you guys a little bit of a reference, each of my crock pots holds about a peck. So just in case you're curious, like for yourself, how much your crock pot will hold, and then 4 pecks equals 1 bushel. So we've got a half a bushel already done. I still have a half a bushel of apples over here that we're also going to process. We're going to turn some of those ones into some apple cider. I might do some more applesauce because we eat a lot of applesauce. And then if I have any left over, I might do a small batch of some apple pie filling, apples that are ready for pie filling. And we can can all this, we can freeze it, we can do either one. So, but for the apple butter and the applesauce, I want to can both of those. So let's get right into it, friends. Alrighty, friends, so I have my stick blender here, and I have my apples. Like I said, they've already cooked down. They're all nice and soft from yesterday. And I will give you a look at them in a moment. And then these are all the spices that we're going to be using for the apple butter and the applesauce. Now, the recipe that is in the book for the applesauce really just calls for, let's see here what it says. And this is page 139 for applesauce. It says 6 pounds of apples, 2/3 cup of sugar, 1/2 cup of water, and 2 tablespoons of bottled lemon juice. And that bottled lemon juice is to help it preserve for the canning process. Our apple butter on page 133, I believe I said here. Yes, 133. Let's see, it's calling for about 4 pounds of washed, peeled, cored, chopped apples. And then it has a guide here on the right hand side where you can choose what type of liquid you want, what type of sweetener you want, and what type of spices you want. So you can really adjust this to your liking, and then you just follow the steps. So usually last time for the apple butter, what I did is I did a little bit of ginger, clove, cinnamon. I always put salt in both of them just to balance out the sweetness. Put a little bit of sugar in there, and then obviously our lemon juice for the apple butter for this recipe is calling for 1/4 cup. Just going to give you guys a look of our apples now that they have cooked down in the crock pot significantly. You can see where they kind of started and where they're ended up. Now, I wanted to show you guys this too because see this back one here in the red crock pot, see how there's more of a liquid in there? Like it seems like that retained a little bit more water, whereas this one cooked down a little bit more. I wanted to show you guys this purposefully because back here, we're probably going to make this into our applesauce because with the applesauce, it doesn't really need to be reduced down that much. And then this one, since it is starting to get reduced, we're going to turn that into our apple butter because it's already started the reducing process for us. So let's get going. I'm going to mix this up with the stick mix, and then we're going to taste each one to see where it's at, and then we're going to start seasoning both of them accordingly. Okay guys, so I blended up both of our crock pots, and as I was blending, I noticed that the red one is really, really liquidy, I put too much water in there for it to be an applesauce. But that's no problem because we were gonna make apple cider anyway. So that's a perfect consistency for my apple cider. So what I'll do is I'm gonna transfer this to a stock pot and finish the apple cider on my stove. And then that'll free up this crock pot so that I can add more apples to it and then cook down those apples for applesauce. And then this time I'll just make sure I put a smaller amount of water in there so that we get obviously a nice applesauce. Now this one over here in our white crock pot, I think that's gonna be just fine for our apple butter. It does have a little bit of a trace to it, which if you're not sure what a trace is when you're making any kind of sauce or whatnot, if you move your spoon, it should kind of drag a little bit. You should see kind of like a dragging line through it. If you have that bit of a trace, that means that, you know, your sauce, you know, has been, it's cooked down a little bit so that it actually holds its shape a little bit. And so what I'm gonna do is I have the white crock pot on high for 4 hours. I'm gonna leave the lid off because I want this to reduce down some. I did taste both of them, they taste great. They really both just taste like applesauce. I mean, it really, all it is, like I said, I have Macintosh and Gala apples, and then some, you know, clean water from my gravity-fed water filter here. I never use tap water, just so that you're aware of that. I never advise that. So what we're gonna do now is I'm going to season up our apple butter, and then we're gonna get, like I said, this crock pot here transferred over to our stove, and then we'll get that working with this apple cider. Okay, so first things first is I want to put in our lemon juice, and it calls for bottled lemon juice. You can't use fresh lemon juice when you can. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure the science behind it, but if you know out there, please let us know. It would be a good learning point for us. All right, so this is calling for a 1/4 cup of the bottled lemon juice. I'm gonna make sure I add that in first because I don't want to forget that. That's very important for canning. Alrighty, and then basically next I can add in any spices that I want. So first I'm gonna start off with a little bit of salt. And like I said, this is gonna cook down, so we're gonna get a little bit less than what we have here currently. And then I'm just gonna add in, like I said, some of the spices that I had already told you about. I'm not concerned if some of the spices go over this one because our apple cider is gonna be getting similar spices. So I'm gonna add our salt, cinnamon, some ground ginger, and some ground clove. And honestly, I just kind of eyeball this, and what you kind of have to do is I let it, you know, I put some in, I let it cook, open so that it can reduce down, and then I just kind of mix and taste along the way. So I will be here watching it, mixing it throughout the day and tasting it and seeing what it needs, what it doesn't need. I do have some sugar as well to sweeten it, but I'm gonna kind of let it go right now without sweetening it. I kind of like to sweeten towards the end because I kind of like I said, when you were working with spices like clove and these dark spices, clove, ginger, cinnamon, you kind of want to let them cook for a while. You're going to definitely notice a big color change from the pink from the apples to now this mixture is getting a lot darker from the clove and the cinnamon that we're adding into it. So it's definitely going to deepen up the flavor as well. So I don't want to add sugar in right now. You guys can do whatever you want, but this is what I do. I like to use sugar very sparingly. If I don't need it, I try not to add it. And like I said, there are a few different other sweetener options in there. You can use agave, brown sugar, granulated sugar, honey, or maple syrup. So that's for your apple butter. Alrighty. So now that I've got this in here, I'm just gonna let that cook open, high for 4 hours. I'm probably gonna have to continue to restart this. And because these have to cook down so much, especially our applesauce when we get that going, we may not even be able to can it today. It may be tomorrow, but that's okay. Usually my canning projects stretch out for a few days because, you know, when you're by yourself and you have to process all this, it takes a few days. So that's okay with me. As long as it gets done and nothing goes to waste, I really don't care how long it takes me, because it is fun. So anyway, we're gonna transfer this one now to the stove, and I will see you guys back here once we're at the stove with our apple cider.
Nothing can ever change the way I feel about you. I promise I will stay forever close to you. We go together. It's all I know. Side by side is how we grow.
Alrighty friends, so we are back here on the stove with our apple cider, and for this we're gonna add in, honestly I'm gonna add in all the similar spices that we added into our apple butter. So salt, ground clove, ground cinnamon, and our ground ginger. And I'm gonna check for a canning recipe on this. I should be able to can it. I just wanna make sure that I have the acidity right. So I need to check to see how much lemon juice this one's gonna call for. It's nice because I can kind of see on the inside of this pot how many quarts I have. So this is a 4 quart. This is filled up to 4 quarts here. Alrighty. And what we're gonna do is I'm cooking this on mid-high on the stove. It really doesn't, it's not like it needs cooked, but what we're doing is, like I mentioned with our apple butter, is we're developing the flavors with the spices that we're putting in there. So that's really what we're doing when we're cooking this. So we're just really letting those spices develop. Like I said, I'm gonna do the same as with the apple butter. I'm not gonna add in the sweetener until later on in the process, because this, it's kind of like sauce. You wanna let it cook for a long time. The longer it cooks, the better it's gonna taste. And while it's cooking, I'm gonna look for a apple cider recipe in my little book. And if I can't find one, I'll look one up online to see how much lemon juice we need to can this. Okay friends, so here's what I wanted to mention. I just looked up a few different canning apple cider recipes and some videos just to kind of get an idea. And what I have found is, I know what I have here technically is an apple cider because it's the apples and it's the water. So, but because it's so liquidy, and I've made my cider like this before and it's super, super good. It's kind of like a, so technically apple cider is non-cooked or non-heated apple juice. But obviously when it goes through the canning process, you know, you are going to heat it up. So technically it's just apple juice whenever you're making apple cider. However, like I said, I've made this before like this, but because that I do have the apple solids in here, but they're all ground up, I'm going to follow the recipe for, as far as, you know, the acidity level and the cook time for our applesauce recipe. So I'm just going to follow that recipe so that everything is good to go. Because basically this is like a spiced applesauce, but it's just really, really liquidy. And we did that last time and we just absolutely loved it. It was super, super tasty. If you've never had your, I'm putting it in quotes, the cider like this, definitely maybe make a little batch and see if you like it. Because I know some people are using apples from their orchard and they're super, super small, you know, and they're cooking those down in roasters. You can definitely do it that way if you have a bunch of tiny little apples. But yeah, I mean, if you want to try this way too, like I said, you heard me before, I peeled, cored, cubed up those apples, let them sit in our crock pot, and then obviously now we have a nice liquidy, you know, what I'm calling cider. So I hope you guys enjoy this. This is a really, really tasty recipe and super, super good for the holidays. This is one way here to make your house smell like fall and to make it smell like Beautiful, beautiful spiced apples. Better than any candle you'll ever buy. So anyway, I'm just gonna let these flavors develop, and then I'm gonna reference my applesauce recipe for the lemon juice I need to add in here. And the other thing I heard is some of the apple cider recipes, you know, say that there's enough acidity in the apples. You don't have to add, you know, more acidity to it. However, they said if you feel more comfortable, you can do citric acid, bottled lemon juice, or even an apple cider vinegar. So whichever you prefer in here. I might take the same measurements from the lemon juice and just do apple cider vinegar in here to obviously keep along with the apple taste. So I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna prep some more of our apples, and I will see you guys back here once we're on to the next recipe. Alrighty friends, so here's what we're working with currently. I put our apple butter here on the stove so we could free up our other crock pot. And I have our, what I'm calling our apple cider here in the front. We're just gonna let these two simmer for a while. This back one has to reduce, and I'm just waiting for the flavors to develop in this one. Next, what I have here in our sink are the rest of the half a bushel that I have. I sprayed all the apples, rinsed them down and sprayed them with our vegetable cleaner. Next, I'm gonna be scrubbing these and adding more vegetable cleaner. I wanna get them real nice and clean. And then what I'm gonna do is we'll rinse them real well. And then I'm just gonna quarter these, and then I'll add them back into our crock pots. And I'm only gonna put about an inch or two of water in there at the bottom. And that way our applesauce doesn't get too liquidy. But you wanna have a little bit of water in there just so that they don't burn as well. Now we're doing cores, seeds, and everything because we're gonna run this applesauce through our food mill. But these apples need to get really, really soft, so they're probably gonna be cooking in there. Some of the recipes I looked at was anywhere between 12 to 24 hours. And if you have a big roaster pan, you can, you know, big roaster, electric roaster, you can also do it in there as well. You can fit a lot more in there. But I'm hoping I can fit all of these in my 2 crock pots. So let's get going. All right, everybody, so here we are. I have our apples in the crock pot. Obviously, they're overflowing a little bit. They're gonna cook down. I have, like I said, about a couple inches of water in the bottom of these crock pots. They're on low for 10 hours. This is probably gonna take a good 12 to 24 hours for these to get nice and soft. Like I said, if you have a big roaster pan, I would recommend using that because I don't have one. So we're just trying to do the best we can. But anyway, so let me show you what else we've done here in the meantime. Cleaned up our sink, got any little bit of dishes done. And then what I did is this back pot, I'm actually gonna turn this into our cider. And so what I did is I diluted it down with a little bit of water because it was starting to get thick on us. And then the front one is getting significantly thicker. That's why I figured this one would be better for our apple butter. Now the back one I have on low. I did add some more seasoning to it. Some of our seasonings over there that we're using. And then the front one here, I just keep tasting and adjusting as it cooks. And this needs to reduce down quite a bit. I think I started with 4 quarts in here. It probably needs to reduce down by half. So probably when it gets down to the, yeah, I'm on right now a little under 3 quarts. So it still has about 1 more quart to go to reduce down. This should probably be done by the end of the day, but I'm probably not gonna can it today just because of how late in the day it is. So I'll just let this cool and then wrap it up, and then I'll can it tomorrow. So that'll be water bath canned. And then I'll show you here what we did with the remainder of the apples. I kept some out for fresh eating. These are the nicest apples that I had out of the last bit of the bunch. And then I took the ones that kind of need to be, you know, eaten through, and I sliced them up, and I'm gonna put that in the freezer for any apple pies or little tarts that we're gonna make. So yeah, so that is where we're at here with the apples. I will bring you guys back, you know, tomorrow when we are on the next step. All right, everybody, it is the next day. And last night what I did is I canned our apple butter and the apple cider that we made. I'll show you that here in a minute once I flip the camera around. Also, I'll let you know what we've been doing. So we had our half a bushel of apples in both crock pots yesterday with a little bit of water in there. They did cook down, and then today we used our Victorio strainer to basically take all the pulp out, takes the seeds, the skins, the cores, takes everything out, and then it leaves you with just the apples and the apple juice. And then what we did is we put that the apple juice and the apples through a finer fine sieve so that we could get more of the apples and then, you know, remove some of the juice. So I'll show you what we've got around here. We have a little bit of a mess, but I think it really turned out well. And even after I put this thing together, it seemed like it did its job. So I'm happy about that. All right, so here is our strainer. This is just the chute that goes around this, you know, screen here. And then this is all the pulp here right now. So pulp and seeds and whatnot. So I have to clean this up, obviously. I have to clean up our crock pots. And then here I'll show you, this is our apple cider and our apple butter. Nicely out. This is from yesterday, so I still have to wash, label, and date these. And then I'll show you what we've got over here. I'm starting to get that counter cleaned off. I have to do these dishes yet, but those ones are clean there. And then here is our applesauce. So after I passed it through another fine sieve, we got this nice, you know, chunky applesauce. So I'm really excited about this. The only thing I'm kind of not excited about is the half a bushel only gave us about 3 quarts of product here. So, but I'm going to taste it, see if it needs anything. If anything, maybe a little bit of cinnamon, some salt, and then if it needs a tiny bit of sugar, I might add that. And then we're going to get this ready to water bath can. So this is what I made for dinner on this canning day. This is just a chicken and rice and vegetable with cream cheese and some sauces. I just kind of threw this all together. And that we're gonna have that with some crackers and some of our homemade applesauce that we just made. Alrighty guys, so our applesauce is all out of the canner. I checked all the lids. They all sealed for me, except for 2 of my apple cider half pints. I already had them in the refrigerator though. So next is I'm gonna wash, label and date all of these jars. They've sat now long enough and they're cooled down. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Just a little recap, we have our applesauce, our apple butter, and then our apple cider over here. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Bye-bye, friends.